Welcome back, everybody, to Party Jet Sports. It's one of your hosts, Caleb Gill. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back, Jets fans, for another Jets-related episode. I know I'm probably about a week, 2 weeks late on getting this out, but with the NFL draft having passed us, I did want to kind of touch on and recap the Jets draft class, especially now that the Jets are into rookie minicamp and we're starting to see, some football in shorts with the rookies. We've already got a number change with Mason Taylor going from 46 to 85. He looks more like a tight end. I'll touch on how I feel about that pick along with the other draft picks in this class. I'm going to focus more so on the first 4 rounds because, after that, I just don't think, a lot of these picks probably will not pan out. We probably won't talk about them more than just, they were just in the draft class. There's not going to be a lot of memorable moments, I'd imagine, from some of these. And if you hit on 3 picks in your draft class, that's a win. With how much NFL teams struggle in the draft, if you hit on 3 players, that's a win. And I think when you look at this class for the Jets, I like the potential of them hitting on at least 3 of these guys. There's some question marks, obviously. You're going to have that for any player. Right? How many number 1 overall draft picks do we sit back? It's man, I know they were number 1, but were they really worth it now that we're looking back? Guys like Kyler Murray, Jamarcus Russell, one of the biggest busts in NFL history, was at number 1 overall pick. We're looking back at the Jaguars with who they took a couple of years ago and Travion Walker. It doesn't matter if you're pick 1 or the last pick in the draft. There is no guarantees anywhere. Which is why I try not to do the whole draft grade thing, but it's still interesting to see and read what other people's feedback are on the players that they took and how they fit into, specific teams' needs and what they're looking for. So when it comes to the Jets and how they approach this draft, I like the strategy early. I thought it made sense. What I said before the draft was they were going to have to take a tight end and an offensive tackle. Right, those were the 2 biggest needs for the Jets heading into this draft, was right tackle and tight end. So it was a matter of which do you take first? Do you take the tight end first and then just pray to God that there's a right tackle that's going to be good enough to start day 1 there for you in the second round? Or do you take the right tackle round 1 and then bank on the deep tight end class that this year was? I felt this was a deep tight end class. I've been on the record with that. So I was pretty excited. You had 2 guys go in the first round, and who knows, maybe Harold Fannin Jr. that the Browns took is the best one in this class. You just never know. But I very much liked Armand Membou. It makes so much sense. The Jets needed 1 offensive lineman. It's not like some of these years where it's all right, well, let's piece together this, and this. Last year, Olu Fashanu kind of seemed like, how desperately do you need left tackle if you have Tyron Smith? We quickly realized how much Fashanu was needed. And now, thank you, Joe Douglas, nice parting gift from him, getting us Fashanu last year. Because you look at that offensive line, now it has the potential to be really good, especially in the run game, which is where the Jets are going to spend a lot of time. I'd guess that the Jets are going to be 60-70% run, and then that 30-40% pass. That's going to be the offense for this team. I'd imagine a ton of run, and now the offensive line looks capable of handling that. And when you have backs like Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, now that you have that missing piece, that last puzzle piece that you needed is now in place with Armand Membou. Assuming he's not a bum. And you take that risk. It's the NFL draft. These guys have never taken, pro snaps. Unfortunately, there's going to be busts in this draft in the first round. It's going to happen. You just pray that your guy isn't one of those busts. And I think Armand Membou has what it takes to be a solid right tackle. He's a pure guy, pure right tackle. It's what he played in college. So it's not like you're asking, like Mekhi Becton, who was a right tackle but could play left. Like, you're not asking a guy to move. Or like Elijah Vera Tucker, who could play tackle, guard, has played both. Like, you have a guy that is set in stone at right tackle. So that offensive line, again, is set. You have your two pillars for hopefully the next decade on the outside. There's really no complaints for me when it comes to the Armand Membou pick, because it helps. It was the one missing piece that we had on the offensive line. You really didn't want to go into the season with the potential guys that would have been lined up there. An offensive line is as strong as their weakest link. And who the Jets were going to send out there was going to be a huge, massive weak link. Like that would have been like, if you had a chain link, the link that would have been the right tackle would have been like on a thread, like hanging on to the rest of the chains on a thread. Like, it was ugly. Now the Jets are going to have, there's going to be some struggles early. He's a rookie, something that he's going to have to learn. We're going to have to deal with. But ultimately, it was a smart thing to do. It was the right process. And that's really what you wanted to see from Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn in their first year, was how's that process? You could have taken the flashy guy. You could have taken a Tyler Warren, who we talked about a lot, but Colson Loveland was the first tight end off the board. You could have taken Loveland if you wanted that type of guy. But you did the smart thing. You took the right tackle. And then you followed that up in round 2 with Mason Taylor out of LSU. He wasn't a guy that I talked about a lot, but I do think he's a solid all-around tight end. You have, with Armand Membou and Mason Taylor, you kind of have like two offensive linemen in some ways that you took, because Taylor can line up in a three-point stance and help in the run game. He's not great at one thing, but he's good and solid at multiple things, which is fine. That's kind of what we need. We need guys that are good run blockers and good pass catchers. They don't need to be elite. They just need to be able to help. And in the second round, with Mason Taylor, that's something that you could get excited about. And we haven't, to be a good tight end for the Jets, it doesn't take much. It really doesn't. We haven't had a good tight end in a long time. Dustin Keller, maybe? I don't want to throw any shade at like Jeff Cumberland, who was solid, but he wasn't elite. Sorry to say it. Love you, Jeff. Why'd I do that? He's still alive. Love you, Jeff Cumberland. During those Geno Smith days. But we haven't had an elite tight end for some time. And Mason Taylor, I'm not saying he's going to be an elite tight end, but I think he has a chance to be a good tight end. Like, could you get Pat Freiermuth production out of him? I think you could. He doesn't need to be Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski. Like, he doesn't need to be that. But if he can be like a Pat Freiermuth, like, you'd be happy with that. But the steal of the draft for the Jets might be in the third round. And this is one that I know a lot of people have talked about already. Like, me saying this is not like breaking news or earth-shattering stuff, but it does need mention. It does need discuss. Azareye'h Thomas, when I saw that flash on my screen, I'm like, the heck? Like, a corner? Really? But then you sit there, you think about it. And then Drew even said it in the chat, like, it's a good player. In the third round, where he was taken what, 73? Yeah, pick 73. he was a consensus top 50 pick for a lot of, maybe not consensus all the way around, but a lot of people had him as a top 50 player. So to get him at 73, you know, you took care of offensive line, you took care of tight end. I think a lot of this, like, had Kyle Williams still been there, I think he would have been the pick at 73, but the Patriots scooped him up in front of the Jets, and when that happened, it's like, all right, well, who's the best player on our board? Thomas is still here. We take him and we figure it out later. And I've said this a couple different times. Like, you are not always drafting for today's needs. You do have to draft for tomorrow's needs as well. And corner, you never know. I think Sauce does get... I think him and Garrett Wilson are getting re-signed this summer. Like, they're going to get their massive contract extensions this year, as they should. But Stevens on the other side, I know the Jets just gave him big money. But now you have... You know, if he doesn't pan out, Thomas is he's a tall, sticky corner. It's going to be hard for guys to beat him one-on-one. So that's the one really nice thing about him. I'm very intrigued by what happens with this secondary. The secondary is going to be a huge talking point this offseason for us because of the number of players and the bodies that are there. But it's not a lot of great bodies, and it's not a lot of stars. Like Sauce. He corner, number 1. Top 5 corner in the league, maybe top 3. Not going to get into that today. Thomas has a chance to compete for a lot of reps next to Stevens. Now, Stevens is probably going to start, but does he start at corner? Do they move him to safety? There's a lot of those, and, you know, if Thomas comes out in training camp and he's like, ooh, Thomas should be starting. Do the Jets, because they gave Stevens so much money, do they move him to safety next to Andre Sisco? Or... And I think that's a scenario I'd be fine with, because I'd like to see Stevens as a safety. I'd like to see, you know, he gets beat a lot. So maybe if you line him up and give him some depth and let him just kind of like cover the zone instead of trying to man up, maybe that's where you get the most bang for your buck with him. But they gave him a lot of money to be a safety corner. I have no idea where they're going to play Stevens. Thomas, again, you take him at 73 because you had him ranked so high on your board and he's still there. It's like, we'll figure it out later. And that's okay. In round 3, that's where you start taking those risks. Like I already said, the Jets filled needs with the first 2 picks. They went young. And they did that here in round 3 too. The process for the first 3 rounds looked really good. Really good. They got their starting right tackle. They probably got their starting tight end. And they have a good corner that can help make that defensive back room as a whole better, depending on where you get. The Jets took another defensive back that I'll mention here in a second. But round 4 is where things really was like, that's where you start scratching your head, like, what are we doing here, man? Like, Azaria Thomas was head-scratching at first, at least for me personally. At first, I'm like, we really need a corner here. We could have gone defensive tackle. I don't remember what wide receivers were on the board after Kyle Williams went. But maybe you take a wide receiver. Nope. You take Thomas, you develop him. He has a chance to be a really good player. That 4th round pick is where the Jets did go wide receiver, obviously. Arian Smith, a guy that really had my head scratching. Like, really? That's who you're going with. He's a burner. I get it. Fast dude. But just because you're a track athlete doesn't mean you can catch the ball. Just because you are Usain Bolt may not. He's fast as hell. Doesn't mean he's got good hands. Doesn't mean you should line him up at wide receiver. So it is interesting that with the Jets taking Arian Smith, it's like, okay, what's the plan here? Drafting a wide receiver that can't catch, kind of counterproductive in some ways. And Aaron Glenn gave him some Jameson Williams comps, and it's like, cool, I get it, he's quick, but Jameson Williams can catch the ball. It's very difficult to have a guy who in college couldn't catch and was dropping passes finally learn how to catch a pass at the next level. Like, that's something you want to learn before you get to the NFL. A wide receiver that can't catch is like having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without jelly. It's just doesn't work. Your job as a wide receiver is to receive the ball. So that was very interesting. I'm like, what the flip are we doing here? But again, not every pick is going to hit, but that's where this process started looking like it was a tale of two halves, really, for the Jets, where the first, not quite, not exactly half, but almost the first half of the draft, the first three picks. It was like, okay, I like it. Makes sense. Solid players, younger guys. And then we get here and it's like, I don't know. What are we doing? The other fourth round pick that the Jets had was Malachi Moore. And he's the other defensive back here in the room that's going to make things interesting because he's a fourth round pick, but he also has a chance to start. Not necessarily, like Malachi Moore is so good. He could be. But that also has to do with how weak we are at safety. We have Andre Sisco. He's probably going to be that more strong safety that plays up in the box, maybe the more Jamal Adams type. But Malachi Moore is more your Marcus May. He's more that free safety. He's not going to come down and hit you. He's going to be smarter. He's going to read the quarterback a little bit more. Like, he's a smarter guy. He's not the hard hitter. He's the, brains, I guess. He's more brains than bronze. I like that. I like this pick. I like Malachi Moore. When Nick Saban left and DeBoer came over, that secondary was pretty young. There was a huge transition there for Alabama, but Malachi Moore was a constant. Veteran, leader back there in the defensive back room. I understand the pick. I understand why Aaron Glenn likes him. And now you're looking at this defensive back room. It's like, all right, where does everybody fit? Like I mentioned, does Stevens play safety and then Thomas play corner opposite Sauce? Or are we going to have, like, guys that are both? I'm very intrigued by the whole defensive back room as a whole. And it'd be awesome for, if the Jets get 4 starters, I'm not saying this is going to happen. But if the Jets manage to get 4 starters out of this draft class that are good, we take those all day. Like, I think Armand Membu is going to be a solid starter. Mason Taylor will be a good starter. And then it's like, could Azareye'h Thomas be good? Could Malachi Moore be good? You're looking like if the Jets manage to get 4 starters out of this class, that's franchise altering. But you still look, it's like Arian Smith, a lot of question marks there. And then the last 2 picks, their 5th round picks, they're going to Miami for defense. And Francisco Muago, I'm going to butcher his name. Muago, linebacker. Okay. And then Tyler Barron, the edge out of Miami. Like, what are we doing here, guys? I feel like the Jets let everybody have a vacation this, draft process, except for their Southern scouts. Like, they only drafted Missouri, LSU, Florida State, Georgia, Alabama, Miami. Like, they only drafted guys south of Mason-Dixon. Like, crazy. Absolutely wild. Blows my mind. that they didn't even like go to the West Coast at all, or no North, no like nothing. It was we're only drafting SEC and ACC territory here. But like again, those two picks, like I know you're looking for special teams contributors here, but the Jets have a hole at defensive tackle, and it was a deep defensive tackle class. That's what bothered me the most. Day 3 was, where is the defensive tackle? Who is going to line up next to Quinnen Williams? Are you asking Wago or Barron to line up next to Quinnen Williams? Like, what's the plan there? That was my biggest gripe with day 3. Like, Arian Smith, if you think he can just grow a pair of hands at some point, then it's like, all right, that makes sense. Or you get tricky, you do some trick plays, or, you know, you have him be like an extension of the run game. Like, offensive pieces are fun, whatever. I can talk myself into that. Malachi Moore, I can talk myself into that as a defensive back, a good safety. But the 5th round draft pick just made no sense to me. And granted, they're 5th round pick, so it's like, you know, they call the draft, you know, like dart throws. And by the time you get to the 5th round, you're just you're just backing up even further when you're throwing that dart. Like, the 1st round is supposed to be like me to this screen away, almost like dart throw. Not quite. That's a little hyperbole. 2nd round, like here. And then 3rd, not quite that distance. Obviously, it's further, but you get the point that I'm making. And by the time you get to the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, it's like you're on the other end of the room trying to throw those darts sometimes. But even with those dart throws, I just didn't think they made sense. Maybe they're good special teams guys. I just wasn't a big fan. And maybe, who knows? Maybe those are the 2 guys from this class that end up panning out. The ones I would complain the most about. Overall, if you had to ask me for a grade as I sit here right before Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day, everybody, by the way. Not everybody, to all the beautiful moms out there. I'm going to keep comments to myself regarding beautiful moms. Happy Mother's Day. But as I sit here, May 10th recording, May 11th this is going to get posted on Mother's Day. B-, I'd say. Like, I hate giving draft grades out, but I think if you look at the process, you're grading the process just as much as the picks. I'd say, like, you had a good, solid process those first 3 rounds. You went young, you didn't reach. Like, Armand Membu was probably a top 10, top 15 player. You took him at 7, fills a hole at right tackle. You didn't reach. It wasn't a big reach for him. Mason Taylor at pick 42. He was a top 50 player, so he's not quite a reach there at 42. And then at 73 was a huge, a huge steal. At 73 was Thomas, who was also probably a top 50 player in this draft. They got him at 73. So, again, tale of 2 halves almost for the Jets in this class, where you had the first half, those first 3 picks, not quite half, first 3 picks, really good process. You're not reaching. It makes sense. And then we get to the 4th, 5th rounds, and it's like, okay. Completely different strategy. Now we're starting to reach for players. We're going for older players. I don't know. Maybe Arian Smith, he's got potential if he can catch. So, yeah, I like the picks that matter in this class ultimately are the ones that I like. I like Membu. I really like Mason Taylor. I'm curious and really intrigued to see the defensive backs, the DBs, Thomas and Moore, how they get utilized or kind of where they line up throughout training camp and what the secondary looks like as a whole for us this season. But, I mean, if you have a 7-pick class and you like 4 of the 7, we'll take that. You know. And for it being Darren Muji's first class, I think he probably, and there's going to be some takeaways, there's going to be some things that him and Aaron Glenn are going to be able to do better next year, maneuver, work the board, have a better understanding of the board, because that was another thing, like day 2 and 3, like those 4th, 5th rounds, it's like, maybe they don't understand the board as well. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to complain though too much overall. Giving draft grades is silly a month after the draft, but everybody does, including us here at Party Chat Sport. And I do think, you know, there's some positive takeaways from this class. We'll just ultimately see. We won't really be able to give a full grade on this until like 3 years from now. So we'll check back in 3 years to see how this draft class goes. Make sure you, everything else here at Party Chat Sport is going well, I would say. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the channel and continues to subscribe and continues to tell people to check us out. We love the fact that we're able to put content out for people to enjoy. We hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoy making it. So thank you, everybody. This has been a long off season so far, and it's just about to get longer before it gets shorter. That's what she said? Maybe? But we do have football in shorts now, so we are headed in the right direction, and before you know it, we're going to snap our fingers and it's like, oh crap, preseason. So we'll get you there. I think we're going to try getting a group pod or a couple of us together sometime this week to record something. Dylan's had a couple Steelers things on the feed the last 2-3 weeks, especially that George Pickens trade really shocked us, so make sure you do check that out at Party Chat Sports. Make sure you follow us on TikTok, Twitter, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, anywhere and everywhere, all at Party Chat Sports. Until next time, again, happy Mother's Day. Make sure you are treating your mom well, with respect and the love that she deserves. So enjoy your day with mom. Check us out at Party Chat Sports. We'll be back sometime, hopefully sometime this week. I'm not sure when I'll be back with Jets content, but I'll be back. You'll be able to see my beautiful face at some point again here in the near future. Until